Hi, I hope you're mentally and physically well. If this is your fourth or fifth time back, subscribe. If you want to see my videos in your algorithm, like it. Cool. This video is about Micheal Freinzee. Basically, his father was in jail for about many years. He was part of the Mafia, and he chose to follow him in his footsteps. He's gonna debate with 20 cops. It'd be interesting to see what they agree on and what they disagree on. I'm watching this live for the first time, so let's see this discussion.
Most law enforcement officers are actually afraid to go hands-on. They're afraid to deal with people like you. It's not a game.
They're not afraid to deal with us.
Absolutely.
No,
a lot of people are.
Why?
A lot of
Afraid to
people
us? We are an officer's dream.
Is there corruption? Yes. Is there self-serving people who want to promote? Yes.
That's all I'm
But
saying.
for you to say, no, well, that's not what you're saying.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
What am I saying?
Where's the BS button?
You guys violated your oath, or you
We're
wouldn't be here.
criminals.
Right?
You can't. We were criminals.
You
can't compare
but
us to the. If you compare us to the FBI, we're in a lot of trouble.
I'm not comparing.
Hi, I'm Michael Freinzee. I'm a former cop regime in the Colombo family in New York, one of the 5 New York Mafia families. And today I'm surrounded by 20 cops. All right, my first surrounded claim is undercover sting operations often manufacture crime.
Yeah, it's called entrapment.
And I'm far away.
How do you
Nice
do?
to meet you. So, you believe that undercover operations create crime.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the word entrapment. So, entrapment means that law enforcement officers are inducing a reasonable person who is not predisposed to a crime to commit a crime.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're predisposed or not, civilian or criminal. When you create an opportunity for a person to do wrong, yeah, you're responsible for that. If a person is not a drug addict, whether they're civilian or they are a criminal, and then you offer them to buy drugs that are legal, yeah, and they give in that instance and buy, yes, they're responsible because they got accountability. They're responsible for buying the drugs, yeah, but you're responsible as well for supplying the drugs to them because it doesn't matter. A criminal could decide, yeah, he's gonna wake up and change his life, and he's not gonna. And I'm not gonna sell drugs. I'm not gonna rob people. I'm not gonna do whatever and so forth. Now his intention is that today I'm not gonna go anywhere near drugs or the places that sell drugs or anything. I'm gonna stay away from it, or I don't want to do wrong. And then what happens? He's just minding his own business and so forth. He's not going to link his friends or anything to that and so forth. And then what happens is you offer him the drug. Yeah. Now he might get weak, yeah, which is wrong, and he's responsible for that and buy it. But you tempted him. So like, even if he hangs out with his old friends and he normally does drugs, yeah, or whatever and so forth, even if he would buy the fact once you're involved in it, you supply. You're involved in it, whether he smokes, he does drugs, or he like whatever the crime is. Once you supply it, you're responsible too.
Or operations create crime.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the word entrapment. So, entrapment means that law enforcement officers are inducing a reasonable person who is not predisposed to a crime to commit a crime.
Well, what do you mean a reasonable person? Not, no. In my experience, the undercover operations were either an undercover law enforcement person or somebody, a confidential informant that was put into that situation. That's not a fine, upstanding person normally. The undercover agent, absolutely.
Okay.
But not that other person.
So I've worked undercover. I've worked undercover in multiple situations.
You're a fine upstanding person.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And looking at it from that perspective, if I was doing a prostitution sting, walking the streets, then people weren't predisposed to committing crime. They could keep driving.
What do you mean? We're all predisposed to committing crime. If you don't know, like, this woman must have like a wealthy upbringing or a stable upbringing. What are you talking about? If it, I don't know in America if prostitution is illegal or not. Well, it must be because the way she's talking, yeah. Like, for example, if you get dressed up with the intention to put makeup on, wear short skirts, put perfume on to cool men, yeah, and then walk up and down to get men's attention, yeah, to walk up and down the high street to sell yourself, yeah. If you wasn't there, yeah, and the man's walking down the street and so forth, and this, that, and the other, if he decides, yeah, he sees you, you're available because you're selling yourself and you're marketing yourself, yeah, like like really naked and really lustful and this, that, and the other, and so forth. And you know what I'm saying? And you're making direct eye contact and this, that, and the other. And it's clear you're selling yourself. If he crosses over, he's wrong for crossing over, yeah, and trying to solicit you. And you're wrong for putting a temptation there. I don't understand how you think that you're not responsible. If you wasn't there, yeah, if you wasn't there, he would not have looked to you. You went out with the intention for him to look at you and for him to buy you for sex or create that image of it. So you're responsible. You. It's like someone who sells cigarettes. Someone who sells cigarettes, the people who get cancer from buying from your shop, whether it's legal or not, you're responsible. I don't know how she thinks that she's not like she's withdrawn from
Not
this
that other person.
equation.
So I've worked undercover. I've worked undercover in multiple situations.
You're a fine, upstanding person.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And looking at it from that perspective, if I was doing a prostitution sting, walking the streets, then people weren't predisposed to committing crime. They could keep driving or keep walking right by me.
Correct.
So the fact that I and my law enforcement agency created an arena for someone to make a decision does not mean that I manufactured crime for them. I did not force them to commit crime. They made that final decision.
I agree with that, and I believe that undercover sting operations are necessary.
Okay.
You know, to catch people that you suspect of being criminals. However, there are situations that I'm very familiar with where they will use another criminal, okay, to go into that, become a confidential informant, and he will help to manufacture a crime by getting people to say things that they wouldn't have ordinarily said, put them in a situation, bring them a criminal activity of some point, and put them into it. So yeah, because they don't know what this other person is doing. I give you an example. Michael Freinzee, we know he's an organized crime guy. We got our informants told us that, but we haven't been able to catch him in a crime. So let's send somebody in there and see if they can create something to put him involved in. And then we have our crime. That's done.
It is,
Yeah.
but sending someone in like a confidential informant, there's also a lot of controls that are on the law enforcement side.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that person is wired or there is an infiltration of a law enforcement officer on, as part of the act, they're still not causing crime to be manufactured. It's all being done rightfully by the suspect.
I can't agree with that. I cannot. When you wire up a confidential informant, and that informant brings criminal activity to that other person because that's the person that's the subject of the sting operation, that's entrapment as far as I'm concerned, because that wouldn't have happened if your confidential informant didn't go in and manufacture that crime. They're bringing him the crime. He's part of that criminal activity.
Understood.
And
but
why
if you didn't want to commit that crime, you wouldn't have to. You could walk away. You could be like,
You're saying if I offer someone the option to do something wrong and they accept to do wrong, then only they are responsible, not me for providing it. How does that make sense?
what? I I don't want to do this robbery
That's
tonight.
true.
I don't want to put a, amount of money on someone's head. I can just walk away.
Absolutely, and if you do, you're not entrapped. But if you do it, then you are entrapped. And that's what the confidential informant is supposed to do, entrap you.
What do you mean, no?
I
Why are you
understand what
shaking
you're
your head
saying,
for?
but you just made my argument.
Oh.
So if you could walk away from that, and if you walk away from that, it's not entrapment. You're not getting involved in the criminal activity,
That's
where
correct.
if you stay involved in it, you were predisposed.
You're supposed to have a society, yeah? The reason why you stop people from doing drugs, the government says, is because you don't want people. The reason why kids have to be over a certain age to do certain things and so forth is because uh, you don't want them to be influenced or to become addicts or to be whatever it is, yeah? You're not supposed to put things in society that cause people to, to do wrong. So if the criminals are doing it, that's on them. But once you start doing what the criminals are doing, or creating the illusion of it, yeah, you're tempting them. I don't understand why it's so hard for her to understand.
To move forward with that crime regardless. So it's not entrapment either.
Well, I disagree with that. I think because it would have never happened if if law enforcement didn't put their CI in there to try to entrap that guy, then there would have been no crime.
But if the person they were trying to entrap, let's say it's you, if you were going in with a clean conscience, not wanting to commit crime at all, then it wouldn't matter who they put in there.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you're still creating the crime. Law enforcement is creating the crime through their confidential informant. Because it would have never happened if that confidential informant, if he never met him, then there would be no crime.
So the confidential informant comes in saying, I want to do XYZ crime, you can still walk away.
You can, and then there's no entrapment. But there wouldn't have been anything at all if your guy didn't come in. He wouldn't have had to refuse anything because there wouldn't have been anything to refuse.
So you're saying you would never have committed a crime no matter what it was if there wasn't a confidential informant that came in?
I'm not saying, no, but here's what I'm saying. Then get him for that crime. Then the government didn't push that. The government didn't create it. The government didn't manufacture it. He did it on his own. You have every right to get him at that point.
The government provided an opportunity, and the person
She
can decide
ain't got
whether
strong
or not
enough
to take that
points,
opportunity.
and she's wrong as well.
That's correct. But let me ask you a question. Here's somebody here who just, he's broke. He's got no money. No money at all. Never committed a crime in his life. Innocent guy. Okay, can't put food on his table. You don't like that guy. You know what? I don't like him. I don't know what to do. He's not a criminal, but I'm going to send somebody in there and give him some incentive. I'm going to send somebody in there to talk to this guy to tell him, listen, I have this jewelry store that we can rob. Don't worry about it. Inside job. Nobody's going to know anything. Okay, but come with me. We'll do it. Now you can put food on the table. So you created a crime. You manufactured a crime for a guy that never was in trouble in his life.
He may never have been in trouble in his life, but if he wasn't already thinking that he could get away with that crime or commit that crime.
This woman has no idea of life, man. I've been someone who grew up in a council estate. I've been homeless and this, that, and the other, so forth. Anybody, the way she talks, she got this word predisposed. If you become homeless tomorrow, trust me, when you become homeless tomorrow, let's just say you lose your nice job or this, that, and the other, so forth. Just 5 things go wrong in a row for you, yeah, and you just like what happens is that you have problems with your credit cards or something, but you end up getting checked out your house and stuff like that. I guarantee your likelihood, yeah, your likelihood of committing crime is gonna shoot up, yeah. The reason why there's more crime in poor areas than there is in rich areas and so forth is why, because most like go to a council estate or the blocks of the projects or the ghetto, whatever you want to call it, yeah. Look, most people are not criminals, yeah. If you go to a projects or you go to a council estate, and out of all those big tower blocks and stuff like that and so forth. Say there's one estate, yeah, and there's 1,000 people living there. Most people go to school, go to college, and then after they work retail, or they they work in a fast food shop, or they learn a trade, or they learn some other skill and they do that. A lot of people are working paycheck to paycheck. Now, the more that tax goes up and the more inflation goes up and the more rent goes up here, like most people are not going to commit crime. Yes. Now on most estates, yeah, like only like 5 to 10% of people are gang members, are drug dealers and so forth. But the more that tax increases, the more rent increases, the more mortgages increase, yeah, the more one by one people start doing shortcuts to take money, not because they're predisposed, because they're hard-cut criminals. Why? Because the strife of living, they paycheck to paycheck and so forth and so forth, and trying to provide this, that, and the other gets tighter and tighter and tighter. Yeah, and that's why people choose. People don't choose to do things, bad things, yeah, because they're evil. That's a minority of people, even out of criminals. The people where people, most people, there's some lazy criminals, and then there's some people that basically they're just trying to survive. But the vast majority of people are not going to. But every time you offer, the more people, for example, the more people that are offering drugs, yeah, the more people that will give into it. Yeah. So, for example, people don't just move out of poor neighborhoods because um, they don't want to get burgled or they don't want to get robbed. People, why do people move to nicer areas or more affluent areas? Why? It's not just that. It's not just because you might get robbed or you might get or what is it, your house might get broken into. People move out because they have families and they have kids and they don't want their kids, yeah. They don't want their kids to be influenced, yeah, by the things around them. So what happens is that if you're saying that she's got this understanding that people just become adults. People just become adults and then what happens? Okay, say you got kids, they reach 18 or whatever the age limit is in America, 21, where you become an adult. Okay, they're adult now. Now, in her world, it doesn't matter whether you live in the ghetto or it doesn't mean if you live in a gated community. Why? Because if you're not predisposed to crime, then you're not gonna commit crime. No. What makes you do wrong is your environment. What makes you do wrong is your company. What makes you do wrong is your surroundings. It's nothing to do with predisposed. If you're in an area where there's not much people selling drugs, yeah, or not much people in gangs, or there's not much people, what is it, who are criminals and stuff, there's less chance that you'll become a criminal, yeah? What is predisposed crap? Most poor people are not hard, evil criminals, or they're just they've messed up in life, or things have gone wrong, and they're just trying to survive. That's why they shoplift and stuff like that. It's wrong. They shouldn't do it, and like but at the end of the day, yeah, they're not predisposed to just being evil people.
I'm going to send somebody in there and give him some incentive. I'm going to send somebody in there to talk to this guy to tell him, listen, I have this jewelry store that we can rob. Don't worry about it. Inside job. Nobody's going to know anything. Okay, but come with me. We'll do it. Now you can put food on the table. So you created a crime. You manufactured a crime for a guy that never was in trouble in his life.
He may never have been in trouble in his life, but if he wasn't already thinking that he could get away with that crime or commit that crime, he would say no.
You can't lock somebody up for what they think. I may think of committing. I may want to rob Brink's truck, but I'm not going to do it.
Of course.
So you can't get mad at me for what I'm thinking.
But if he doesn't move forward with robbing that jewelry store, then there's no crime.
You don't understand. You didn't understand what I said. You didn't like that guy. He wasn't a criminal. You just didn't like him.
Yeah.
But I can't do anything about it. But I'm law enforcement. I have a tool. I have a weapon. I have a CI. I'm going to send him in there. I'm going to bait this guy into committing a crime.
I love that you think there's enough time and staff to be able to screw people over.
In the world of organized crime, Okay, they got all the money, all the resources. Let me tell you something. During my time in organized crime, we had 750 made guys that comprised all 5 families. We had 1,400 agents, 2 agents to every 1 guy. They have plenty of time. That's what they get paid for. They have plenty of time, and they put a lot of effort into it, and they put a lot of guys. They destroyed my former life. They have all the time in the world when they want to. I'm not saying you do or anybody else in this room. I'm telling you my experience. And let me tell you something. I had a lot more respect at that time for police. They were doing their job. I understand that. People say to me, Michael, now, you got to hate the police. I said, no, I don't hate the police. I have a wife. I have 5 daughters. I have grandkids. When they walk down the street, I want the police to protect them. I support the police, but I don't support the underhanded stuff that was done and that continues to be done. I'm sorry. I think the defund the police movement is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I'm totally against that. But I'm totally against law enforcement using tactics and weapons to get people that they shouldn't be doing. They have to play by the rules, period, or we have anarchy.
You're right, and they do play by the rules.
No, they don't.
Because providing a criminal opportunity does not force someone to commit a crime. And if that person is getting lured into the crime because they don't have enough mental fortitude to say no to something, that's not law enforcement's fault.
Somebody